So what influence does the government have on the UK property market? Or is it just up to us guys as entrepreneurs to go out there and do our thing no matter what? To discuss that, I'm joined by none other than John Howard. John.
Ranjan.
So what do you think? The government dictates everything, or are we as entrepreneurs, we will survive and thrive anything?
Well, very interesting. I speak, as you know, I'm even going to be speaking at Baker Street this year, as promised in your on our Christmas wish list. Don't forget that, will you?
Absolutely not.
Just thought I'd mention it on air.
Yes.
And I speak quite often about the connection between politics and property.
Yeah.
And it is massive. And I don't think enough people appreciate just how important it is. Some people, you know, you put you in a room, who takes any interest in politics? And half the people in the room say, oh, I don't even listen to the news. Well, my God, they need to listen to politics, because the politicians drive the property industry one way or another. One way or another. An example of that would be grants, the grants you can get, the planning that may change. PD, look how that's changed everything so much. You've also, you know, there's so many different things that control the property market and the regulations in that, as well as landlords, Renters Reform Act, all these other, Leasehold Reform Act, all these other things. So it's massive, and we need to discuss them today.
It's massive and it's high up the agenda. I mean, like, for example, we're on a YouTube channel here.
Yeah.
You know, the government do not have a national YouTube policy. You know,
Good.
But housing, good. You know, stay out of it.
Keep out of it.
Keep out of it completely.
Yeah.
But they have a housing policy.
Sure.
And it's always high up the agenda, and it's high up any political party's manifestos. It's one of those key things.
Well,
so that's why it has such an impact.
It's huge, because people, housing is so important to people, and it's so important to voters. And they're looking for votes all the time, don't forget.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. It's all about getting back in 5 years' time or whatever. And the Conservative government did two massive things, I think, while they were in government. One, they created what's called Homes England. Homes England is the government property bank. It's lent billions of pounds to developers, housing associations, councils, to drive the amount of property units up. In other words, to get more properties built and lived in. And I've benefited from that greatly. And I'm just about to I'm working with Homes England on another project for 85 units. So they are there to help deliver difficult projects that other banks won't lend on. So how fantastic is that for a bank to do that? They also, don't forget, did the Help to Buy scheme, which enabled 700,000 first-time buyers get on the housing ladder. What other government what other country would do that? They're two major things they have done to really help the property market in the UK, and people do not give them enough, what's the word? Credit for that. The other thing, of course, they did,
I think
which
more
helped
help to sell scheme for the developers.
Well, you may well argue that, because you're not a developer. I would argue very differently to that, because the developers, the top 10 house builders that build 62% of the houses in the UK, they're vital. The government have got to keep them on side. The other thing they've did, mainly for your benefit, Ranjan, is PD. Well, fancy that. They did that. So they bought PD out, permissive development, out in 2012 originally, didn't they? Because they were so fed up with these councils not allowing commercial property to go to residential. And I think there's been like 600,000 PD schemes in the UK, something like that. Something like that.
I mean,
that's all government influence. A huge amount of influence.
I think to kind of widen this a little bit, I would say that over my 30 plus years in property, every 4 or 5 years, the strategies that you do change a bit.
Yes, I agree.
And I would actually say that they have changed because of government policy.
Yeah.
It has either been a regulatory change,
Yes.
it's either been an incentive,
Yeah.
or it's been a tax type of change, or a tax benefit or break that they've been given.
Yeah.
So they kind of play a role in having a stick to stop you doing something, or giving you a carrot to do something. And I think you've got to keep an eye on what sticks and carrots are being offered, and be first out the gate.
The government website, gov.uk or whatever, go on that. People should go on that because it's full of information about all sorts of things. For instance, the last government, in order to help them get back in Parliament, they came up with a scheme called the Town Fund. Now, the Town Fund gave 25 million to 104 town councils across the UK, not cities, towns. 25 million to tidy up their high streets, to do this, to do that. Now, get the list of where they were, or you could have done, and you still can probably, a list of what towns they were investing in, and on the back of that, you can benefit from that because you know that town's had a boost.
But John,
simple.
That's peanuts. I mean, that probably covers a couple of pot plants around lampposts in the high street.
We're not
and that's about it.
We're not making a political point. What we're saying, Ranjan, is that if someone else is investing in an area, then jump on the back of it.
Yes,
because you'll benefit from that with rising house prices or whatever it might be. Might be for shops to be refurbished, or there are grants available at the moment. And not many people know this. A lot of more people are going to know it now because I'm about to tell everyone on your wonderful show. There is a grant available from councils to spend money on vacant shop premises.
Yes.
Wow.
But that depends on local area, isn't it?
Don't spoil it.
It depends on your local area.
But what I'm saying is go and find out. Councils have got grants, all sorts of different grants available from different times of the year. Homes England do grants for clean up sites. So if you've got a development site that's a brownfield site and it's got contamination, you can apply to Homes England for a grant to clear the site up, to make it worthwhile doing. So there's lots of things, and all this is from the government.
There's lots of there are some incentives. I think the council incentives are getting a little bit less and less at the moment. They are very, very squeezed with their budgets.
They're very squeezed with the budgets, but normally under a Labour government, and I'm not saying this Labour government will do it because they are very squeezed, they normally throw money at grants, throw money at all sorts of things. So, and that once they've got themselves organised a bit better, then you might find there's more grants available for different things. But you seem a bit underwhelmed with all this. You can tell how enthusiastic I am about the connection with politics and property, because it's massive. You seem a little bit negative and underwhelmed.
No. I think it's what I said to you before. I think it's about
you need to become a donor of a party. That way you get a few more contacts, mate.
I think it's about being first out the gate to seize the opportunities. And when there's a new rule change, you really understand what it means. I mean, I've seen. I mentioned tax breaks. I mean, there used to be a rule about 100% capital allowances on refurbishing your own commercial premises, which you can take in the first year. First out the gate, use it.
I agree.
PD, when they tinker with it. I mean, I remember when they brought out the first PD in 2013. In a couple of councils, I was the first person to put in an application when people weren't knowing about it. They didn't really understand what it meant.
Trouble is, you told everyone.
Well,
didn't you? You told everyone.
Yes, but the thing is, what happened was, this is what happens when there's a new incentive or a new rule that comes in. There's no awareness of it in the beginning. But within a short space of time, there is awareness. And what that means is the low-hanging fruit is not so easy to grasp. But the ones where you have to stand on a little bit of a footstool and reach out, they're all there. Those opportunities are there. Because most people are just looking at low-hanging fruit.
I mean, even things that the local council do has a huge effect on the property in an area. Article 4, for instance. Simple things like that have a massive effect on people in their area. So it's not just central government that has this effect. It's also your local government that can have a massive effect. Application, your application on a planning application, if it's given or not. Look at the influence they have and what they can make you or lose you on a fact of 10 people sitting around a table saying, oh, we don't think we like this, we don't like the windows, and we don't like this. Huge. It could be hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds they're playing with.
And sometimes these changes can be brought in. I mean, on the day before Christmas Eve, the government snuck in something which no one really anticipated or anything. It's on Article 4, so you brought up Article 4.
I'm bored of Article 4.
Not Article 4, sorry, selective licensing, HMOs.
Oh, I don't really look into that. I don't spend my Christmas looking at that, funny enough, Ranjan.
No, I'm not talking about HMOs, I'm talking about selective licensing.
Right.
So selective licensing, a borough can apply to the Secretary of State to say that within this area, even a one-bedroom flat let to a couple needs to have a selective HMO license. Yeah. Now, previously, they had to apply to the Secretary of State, and it went through a process, and the Secretary of State can decide whether that's really required or not.
Yes.
The day before Christmas Eve, this government said any council can issue selective licensing willy-nilly.
Wow.
So that means all these people are going to raise, because selective licensing on a one-bedroom flat represents no risk whatsoever.
No, none.
It's a one-bedroom flat let to a couple. Yep. It's already got an EPC. It's already got a gas safety. It's already got electrical and all of this sort of stuff. You put those forms to the council, and they charge you 800 quid for a 5-year license for doing nothing. Yeah. And they just snuck that in, and obviously
Ebenezer Scrooge comes to mind on Christmas Eve, the day before.
That is, it is very, very odd. But there are little changes that pop in here and there, and some little changes will be positive and give opportunity, and some won't.
Well, look at the social housing requirement on developments, for instance. That's again, they could lift that from 9 units at the moment up. They could bring it down. Huge effect on the property industry. It can stop people wanting to build houses. It could encourage people to build more houses.
Yes.
The different, all the other different things that the community infrastructure levy, the SIL, which most councils have, and one thing about SIL, remember with SIL, is that the SIL is on the extra amount of square footage that you are providing on a development. Not the existing.
Yes.
So if you're converting a shop and uppers into residential accommodation, just say, if that property's been empty for 3 years, not a lot of people realise this, they will be a SIL payment. People think, oh, well, it's existing, we're not adding any more square footage, so there won't be a payment. Yes, they will, if it's been empty more than 3 years. And it's up to you to prove, not them, that it's been occupied. A lot of people get caught out with that. So please, people watching, do not get caught out on that.
And essentially, these sort of rules should not be there in order just to catch people out. We're trying to build 1.5 million homes.
Well, we need to build a damn sight more homes than that. That's some target that they've come up with, which they'll never reach, as we know, in the next 4 years. That's for sure. They've already had 9 months, and they haven't done they're nowhere near. So, but I think it's very important that people really, really look into this politics thing, because it has, and the government has such an effect on housing, such an effect.
And I think the other thing is that it doesn't matter whether it's this government or the last government, it is often very rare that policy from different departments is actually joined up. Totally. Or even the same department, that different policies, different rules are joined up. And when they are not joined up and thought properly, there are always opportunities.
There's always opportunities, and you've only got to look at the last government, where they had something like 12 housing ministers in 12 years or something bonkers. I mean, how can someone that comes into the business, probably no experience in housing anyway, suddenly pick up the reins and within a few months, it's just not possible. It's a massive job, and then they're out of the job again within less than a year.
In a key department,
in a key
area
department.
policy.
That was criminal what the government did with that. And I don't even know who the housing minister is now under Labour. I knew one or two of the older ones because, you know, I was Conservative donor and all the rest of it, but I don't know who they are under Labour. But it'll be interesting to see if they keep some consistency with it or not. For me, I don't understand why you wouldn't put people in a position that knows something about it. So Hollingake is the shadow. He is the shadow housing minister, and he had a string of estate agents up in the north. So at least we've got someone in the shadow cabinet now that knows about housing. So that's a start.
Okay, so let me paint a little bit of a scenario for you. King Charles decides to call time on Starmer and dissolves Parliament, and he appoints you as Prime Minister.
Well, that would be lovely.
So as Prime Minister John Howard, what would you do, or what policies would you put in place to get to this 1.5 million target?
Right. Well, Manifesto. Okay. Well, you've put me on the spot.
I know.
Completely.
I know. But
So-
you love all that and you can handle it.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of your
That's why you're PM.
That's why I'm PM. Yeah. So, okay. Well, the first thing to do, you would lift the social housing requirements because they are holding people back. So, for instance, we're doing a development. We could get 12 or 14 units in it. We're not. We're going to do 9 because 9 is under the limit.
Yes.
So you'd get that perhaps up to 25 or something. That's the first thing you would do. That's the very first thing. You would also put a scheme in place to help first-time buyers, where the low deposits, you'd sort out if someone can afford a rent and prove they can afford a rent at a higher level than a mortgage, then they should be able to have a mortgage up to that level. I'd try and fix fix the terms. Fix the interest for 30 years, 25 years, so people know exactly where they are. They're not having this up and down business at all. So they would be very simple things. I would encourage high net worth individuals to invest in residential property because then they'll get a 40% tax relief on the money they put in. They have to keep it in 5 years. That was a scheme that was around in the 1980s and 90s. There's lots of things you can do and be dynamic. You've got to be dynamic to get the numbers up. You're not going to do it by a bit here, a bit there. And it's not all about the top 10 house builders because they only build as many as they think they can sell.
Yeah.
You need to support the smaller developers. Anybody building less than 200 houses a year or developing houses a year is considered small. So we would be considered, although we might do 100, 150, whatever a year, we would be considered small. They need to look after those people far, far more than they do now. There you go. That would be a start.
That would be a start. It is incentivising, and I've always said this, it's incentivising the big guys and the smaller guys. Because the smaller guys will do the schemes that the big guys won't get out of bed for.
Absolutely.
They won't repurpose a brownfield site, 6 flats and all of that. It's not worth Wimpy getting involved in that.
Tax incentives need to be there as well.
But I think there's some supply side as well. Which is we're the one. I think we are the only country in the world that has the green belt system.
Yeah.
Most countries have a national park system.
Yes.
They will designate a national park for heritage and this, that, and the other. It doesn't make sense to put a stranglehold round every town and say all of it needs to be preserved.
The idea of that was to stop urban sprawl. That was the idea, and green belt came in London before the Second World War.
Yeah.
And then after the war, it spread to 20 different towns.
But it's not fit for purpose today.
Not fit for purpose. It's way out of date, and I completely agree. That would be. I'd have to do that in the second month though, because I'm busy the first month. And the second month I'd get on with that.
And I'd also reform some of the conservation area policies, because do we need to conserve everything? I mean, a lot of cities have been through this, whether it's Sydney or Singapore, whatever, they conserve heritage stuff, but not every Victorian house is heritage.
The other thing I would do, I'd get rid of this silly rule where if it's commercial property and was built as commercial property, you have to wait at least a year to 2 years and market it before you can convert it into residential. That would go, because that's holding up development. It's going to happen anyway. It's holding it up. So you could be really dynamic and you could really get things going. It'll take you 18 months to get it going, but you could get it going. And I would be delighted to have the role as housing minister would do. I don't need to be prime minister, just housing minister.
You know, going back to the things I would do, I mentioned the Green Belt.
Would you appoint me in your government?
I'd point you as one of my advisors, maybe.
Thanks.
One of my
that's
spats
great.
in the team.
Thanks.
But I quite like the zoning system they have in other countries. So you just pre-designate this zone as being okay for these type of buildings.
Yeah.
And you know, you can build any house you like. It needs to be, you know, this many square foot or whatever it is. You just zone it, so you make it simple.
Well, of course, the other thing you do is
to go through the planning process.
The other thing you do, and again, this is where the government have got control over property developers and investors hugely. They've got a stranglehold. Is the planning system?
Yeah.
You know, somehow you need to slim it down. You need to make it quicker, faster. You need far more planning officers. They need to be paid a lot more to do the job, so they don't then stay 5 minutes and you know, go to private practice. There's lots of stuff you can do, and it needs to be done. But this Angela Rayner ain't the one to do it.
No, but with the planning offices, I mean, I really think you need to be Elon Musk about it and say, look, you get into work. It's all this working from home.
That does help. That does
you
help.
Can't get hold of them on the phone.
You can't get hold of them. You can't phone them. You can't. In the old days, you're going to have a cup of tea with them.
You actually could walk down to the planning office and
sit down there
and see them, but they're never in there.
Never there. Never there. Hey.
But what would you do?
Well, I've got to get off to 10 Downing Street now, so if we can wrap up, that would be great. I'm busy.
So what would you do to sort of put things right? We've shared a couple of ideas there. Government have a massive influence on the property market through incentivisation and sticks. Yeah. And other policies feed into it. We haven't really discussed all the nut to zero stuff and the environmental policy that's feeding into every aspect of housing. But I would summarise, you have got to take an interest in it, as John says,
very much
and
so.
You have to keep your sort of finger on the pulse because there are opportunities if you're first out the gate with a new change in direction, and you're taking
absolutely,
it forward
and the new change in direction is happening. So even more important than perhaps in the past, you need to keep on the ball with it all. Yeah.
So if you want to keep on the ball, make sure you like, comment, subscribe for many more of these videos coming up, and let us know what you want to hear about in the comments below. See you guys next time.
See you next time.